The US is moving a massive chess piece towards Iran, but the humans moving that piece are reaching a breaking point. From the exhausted sailors on the USS Ford who just had their homecoming canceled, to the high-tech electronic bubble hiding the USS Lincoln and the massive surge of F-22s into the region. This is the full story of the silent war for the Middle East. Recently, we talked about the USS Ford compared to the Nimitz-class carriers, but it is still on its way, as are one or two other carrier groups. The Lincoln is currently in the region, so let's talk about it. The USS Abraham Lincoln is a maritime behemoth, roughly the size of 3 football fields. So why is it so difficult for the Iranians to track it down? Here are the primary reasons why finding a carrier is like finding a needle in a haystack. 1. The vastness of the ocean. Compared to the open sea, even a massive ship like the Lincoln is a tiny speck. The sheer scale of the operational area makes manual or visual searching nearly impossible. 2. The curvature of the Earth. The Earth's curve effectively hides the aircraft carrier beyond the horizon from enemy radar, as radar waves generally travel in straight lines. For a radar station positioned at sea level, a carrier more than 50 or 60 kilometers offshore is simply invisible. 3. Constant motion. An operationally deployed carrier is in perpetual motion, moving at variable speeds between 30 and nearly 60 kilometers an hour, without continuous real-time tracking. Even if you locate it for a brief moment, it will be long gone by the time you attempt a strike. 4. The defensive bubble. Even if an enemy drone or aircraft manages to get close, the carrier's escorts and its own air wing create a lethal perimeter. Here are some of the forces that contribute to this bubble. The early warning of the E-2D Hawkeye aircraft patrols high above using powerful radars that aren't limited by the Earth's curvature. Rapid response. If a threat is detected, FA-18 Super Hornets or F-35Cs are scrambled immediately. Over-the-horizon interception. These planes can communicate with the strike group's destroyers, guiding their missiles to targets that the destroyers themselves cannot see. 5. Ghost fleets, electronic warfare. The Lincoln and its strike group are equipped with an advanced electronic warfare EW suits. These systems can spoof enemy radar to create a ghost fleet, displaying multiple false targets that don't exist in reality to confuse the attacker. 6. Electric bubbles. Beyond spoofing, EW systems can create an electric bubble around the carrier group, effectively jamming or blinding enemy radar systems so they cannot function at all within that space. 7. Emissions control, EMCON. During operational sailing, the carrier maintains radio silence and minimizes electromagnetic emissions. By turning off transmitters and using highly encrypted, low-profile communication protocols, the ship avoids leaving an electromagnetic fingerprint for the enemy to track. 8. Dodging the eye in the sky. Intelligence officers track the orbits of enemy spy satellites, or those of adversarial powers like Russia or China, since these satellites fly in predictable low Earth orbit and pass over specific points for only a few minutes. The carrier plans its routes to minimize exposure during those windows. The bottom line is that an aircraft carrier is a giant target, but it is far more elusive than one might think. But let's talk about the human cost of power projection. One of the less discussed constraints regarding the buildup of American forces for a potential strike on Iran is personnel burnout, with a specific emphasis on the aircraft carrier sailors. Ever get stuck for a weekend, Shabbat, in the Army? Remember how much that was awful? Well, thousands of sailors on the USS Gerald R. Ford, for example, have been at sea for 8 months already. Their mission was extended to sail to the Caribbean for operations against Nicolas Maduro's regime in Venezuela. They were finally supposed to be heading home, but instead they were notified that they're closing another 2 months, roughly, and sailing to the Middle East. How does that weekend you missed look to you if you got stuck somewhere on a trip? Think about that. An extra 2 months after 8 months at sea. Ultimately, we are often talking about 18 and 19-year-old kids. For a significant portion of them, nearly a third, this is their first operational deployment. Life on an aircraft carrier involved grueling conditions. 12-hour shifts known as 12-12, 7 days a week, and sleeping in 3-tier bunk beds in shared quarters that can hold dozens of people. Some, working on the lower decks, can go days without seeing sunlight. Others on the flight deck are exposed throughout their entire shift to rain, sun, gale force winds, unbearable noise, where most communication is done via hand signals, and countless dangers, ranging from falling overboard during a storm to being sucked into the jet engine of a fighter plane. During the deployment, internet connectivity is slow, if it exists at all, monitored and restricted. For instance, no social media. Cell phone calls home are impossible. The only option is to wait in line for special shipboard phones, and during sensitive operational activity, even that option is revoked. In short, contact with the outside world is minimal. In this reality, it's no wonder crew members reach extreme mental exhaustion that impairs their performance. This is one of the primary reasons, alongside the wear and tear on the ship systems, that the commander of U.S. Fleet Forces Command, Admiral Daryl Cowdell, has spent recent weeks in the trench war against further extending the Ford's deployment and sending it to the Middle East, despite that being Trump's decision. In the end, it seems a compromise was reached. The Ford will take part in the opening of an attack on Iran, if and when it happens, and shortly after it will leave the arena for home. It is to be replaced by the USS George W. Bush, which deployed relatively recently. In the meantime, the sailors on board will have to make do with video game tournaments or rare steel beach picnics, barbecues on the deck, organized by morale, welfare, and recreation units, which were established specifically to help crew members cope with the extreme living conditions on a carrier and slow their mental burnout. But enough about boats. What about planes? Here's a summary of the U.S. airpower deployment to the Middle East currently. There are 48 F-16 fighter Falcons, 12 F-22 Raptors, 18 F-35s, 6 E-3G Sentry airborne warning and control system planes, approximately 40 aerial refueling tankers, and at least one RC-135V Rivet Joint Strategic Reconnaissance aircraft. This is a massive buildup of assets, and it represents one of the most significant simultaneous transfers of combat aviation in recent years. Analysts note several key takeaways from this specific package. The final pieces, the arrival of the F-22 Raptors and multiple AWAC units, is often seen by military experts as the final stage of preparation before a potential kinetic operation, as these provide air superiority and command and control. The high number of tankers, around 40, indicate the U.S. is preparing for long-range missions that require aircraft to stay airborne for extended periods or strike targets deep within Iranian territory. All of this is even before the Ford, Bush, and other strike groups arrive. Things are sure to be heading in only one direction, and I'll give you two guesses as to where they're going. From 12-hour shifts to ghost fleets on the radar, the life of a sailor is a world of extremes. As the Lincoln and the Ford hold the line, we have to wonder if the strategy is sustainable. What's your take on the current buildup? Drop a comment, join the conversation, and make sure to ring that bell for notifications. I hope to get a chance to talk about some intra-Israel news, as well as, of course, the changes in Judea and Samaria, the talks between US and Iran, and Trump's Board of Peace, which met today. But for now, I've rambled on long enough, so shalom from Jerusalem.